Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Stitch Life. Today's episode is brought to you by Six Car Rental. So, we're going to dive right into our episode for today. Today, we are going over surface design, printmaking, and dyeing. And why do we want to talk about these things? Because these are the things that will actually set your designs apart. Now, these days, very rarely are we able to create silhouettes that hasn't been created before. So the way of you actually differentiating your designs is by printmaking, dyeing techniques, fabric manipulation, you name it. So I'm going to go over a lot of different surface design techniques and different ways to use them, different fabrications, and all of that good jazz. So printmaking, let's start with that. So behind me, you'll notice that I have a lot of different print technique examples. This one is sublimation. These are DTG here. These are, well, the front one is actually sublimation. The back one is digital printing. And then we have a couple different machineries up here as well. So a couple of different things I have here is chenille, which this is more so used as an additional piece that you can add to your clothing, especially when you're doing logos or prints, but it is really cool. Something you can do for a surface design technique. So I'm actually going to go behind the table and I'm going to introduce each piece and how it's used. So on this side, I have the one that is probably the easiest to use, which is a Cricut. I call it a Cricut sometimes, but it's actually pronounced Cricut maker. And what this machine does is it makes the letters in vinyl. So what you would do is you would buy yourself this, and of course vinyl, and you would of course open the machine up. It opens up like so, and you would put whatever your image is on a flash drive, and then you would plug it directly into the Cricut, and then you would actually feed the vinyl through the machine, and then you would cut out your letters, and then you would heat press them onto your garment. And Cricut, another reason why I like it is they have a little presser. It has different temperatures on there, so it's really, really nice that you can use it that way. So this is probably the easiest thing that you can use. It's really good for if it's your first time making t-shirts, or if it's you're making something that doesn't require a lot of colors in it. A Cricut can only do, can only do one color because it's vinyl. Unless, of course, you buy a multicolor vinyl or a one that has texture to it or colors to it, then you can get a little different there. Even what's it called? Like a hieroglyphic, you can do it like that too. Now, another thing that I have on the table is a print for an elastic waistband. And I want to get real close up on this one so that you can see it really good. This is called jacquard. Now, jacquard is used a lot in knitwear. It's actually woven into the fabric. So this is another form of printmaking as well. It's really good if you want to do waistbands to do jacquard. Let's say you have a jogger and you want to have your logo down the side. Jacquard is really, really nice for that. Now, this is not something that you can necessarily do on your own because it does require heavy machinery. This is something that you definitely have to outsource, but it's good to know the names of the different techniques so that you are familiar with them, okay? Now, one thing it is about the print techniques, the person that's actually doing the technique for you, whether it's heat transfer, digital printing, sublimation, jacquard, embroidery, you have to have your artwork file already prepared. Now that artwork file is not an image that you pull off the internet. It's actually a graphic file that's even made to you from a graphic designer. It can be made by a textile designer. And that file, the best format, honestly, is a PNG file, which is a vector file. And once you've given that vector file to your person that's doing the technique, the supplier, then they can execute. But not only can you just give them that vector file, because people get that confused in the design world, you have to give them placement as well as dimensions of everything, okay? So remember that anytime you're doing something customized, scaling, placement, dimensions, all of that stuff is going to be required in order to execute the design. Because if you just send me a picture like, oh, I want my logo across here, I don't know how big you want the logo. I don't know what the height is. I don't know anything. So that's something that you always want to make sure you take account when it comes to printmaking and surface design. I'm gonna click. Now, one of my other favorite techniques is definitely dyeing. I recommend this book. This book is by Mandy Sukhdin. It's called Designs and Techniques for Chivalry Design. This is kind of like if you wanted to do it yourself. It gives you a lot of instructions on how to do different type of techniques, whether it is one of the most popular ones is like tie-dye. Tie-dye can be done with dyeing, and it also can be done with Kool-Aid, because Kool-Aid is actually a dye. So if you want to go the cheaper route, just get you a couple packages of Kool-Aid, put it in a, you can get like a big bucket, put hot water in there, add some soda ash. Looks like this. It really enhances the color. You can buy these from Amazon. You can buy these from like Blick Art Material Store. I even think that Michael's has this stuff too. And then the dyeing things that you'd like, and the ones that I recommend, are iDye Poly. And it'll tell you what fabrications is really, really good for. And then another one that I really like is Procyon. These are my two favorite dyes. And then you just mix them in a bag. Of course, it'll always come in your primary colors, but as we learned in elementary school, to mix like red and blue to get purple, to mix up different things. I think it's like yellow and pink to get orange. So just think about the primary colors and how they are able to create the other colors when you are creating your dye bag, okay? Now, I just want to show you guys a couple different techniques that you can do, like dip dyeing or pleating. Like you can place it directly on coals and do it this way. Make sure you always use your gloves and your safety goggles. But this is a really, really great book because it has step-by-step details on how to, you see that? How to create different techniques, okay? So that's dyeing for you. And dyeing can be done, I don't know if you guys ever heard of tea dyeing. Let's say if you want to make something that's white more on like the cream tan side, you literally can do it with like Lipton tea. And you just put all the little tea bags over in the bucket as well. And then you can dip and dye things that way too. Typically, it's best to start with a white fabrication. That's what's going to be best. Okay? Now, one of my favorite techniques is also woodcut. So this is a woodcut technique. And with the woodcut technique, what you'll see is that you actually take a piece of wood and you carve it out to a design. I did this in my printmaking class in college. And what you do is once it's carved out and you just made your design, and you really just use like I believe this is a 3-ply wood, and then a carver, which you also can get from Amazon as well. And then you just literally make the design. Once it's done, you ink it up, and then you stamp it onto you could do it on paper, you could do it on fabric, definitely a lighter fabric if you want to get a good print. And then the dye kind of looks just like this. It's just regular like print. It's not dye, sorry, it's like print ink, and you can use this. And this one is just called Pitch Black, so you could also find this on Amazon as well. Okay, moving on. So one of my favorite techniques is silk screening. So for silk screening, you'll need a couple different things, okay? And you definitely need screens. The thing with silk screening is you can only do one color at a time. So that means, let's say you have an image that has a lot of colors in it. That means you have to burn the parts of the color onto multiple screens. So how many colors is in the image is how many screens you need. So if I had, just a print or design that had 2 colors, all I need was 2 screens. And what you'll do is you can use a regular inkjet printer and get like your silk screen like paper. And then you take this, get it printed, and then you put it on to the screen. And then you use this machine here. This is the burner machine. It actually burns the actual print onto the screen. There cannot be any light in the room when you're doing this. That means you have to be in a dark room. Windows have to be covered, and there's a lot of different materials with that. The screen has to be filled with emulsion first, and once it's filled with the emulsion, then you can burn the screen, and then you have to let it like air dry before you actually start. So the silk screening process is a little bit longer. It does take time, but it does infuse right directly into the fabric. This is really great for cotton-based fabrics, poly fabrics. You can do it on paper. Honestly, it does not matter. You can do it whatever way you want, but just know that it tends to get messy, because the way it works is you use this little cup here. This will come with it. And there's a printmaking, this is a silk screen kit that you could buy off Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, as well. What you do is you'll take your ink and you'll put your ink in here. And then once the screen is done, and you have to burn the screen backwards. Let me make sure I say that too, because of the way that you print onto the item. Once it's there, you'll dip the ink over in here, and you'll use basically like a squeegee to run it across. You only need to do it once, and you do it really, really fast. You zip it off and you zip it across, and then you're pretty much done. We're going to cut to our commercial break, and when we get back, I'm going to talk about the differences between like sublimation and DTG and how to use those.
Rise, entrepreneur. Take that first step towards freedom. So long to the old routine. Welcome to your new venture. There's an industry that needs disrupting. Ideas you should be challenging. It takes courage to do what you love. We'll help you begin your journey. As a business like you, dedicated to you, we can take on tomorrow together with a business account you could open today. Entrepreneurs across the UK. Start your business with Tide.
And we are back, and what we're going to talk about now is digital printing. So I want to just pull up a chair and kind of bring this a little bit close, and then we can talk about some of these print techniques when it comes to fabrication, okay? So sublimation can only be done on synthetic fibers, okay? You cannot do sublimation on cottons, leathers, and wools and natural fibers. You can only do them on synthetic fibers. Now, DTG, which is direct to garment printing, is pretty much a really big printer. Okay? What digital printing is a really big printer, and I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like shortly. This is part of the digital printing machine. So what you would do here is open this up. Digital printing is literally like printing on like a piece of paper, but you're doing it on clothing. So it's like literally like a big printer, but instead of it being for paper, it's for clothing. So this is my setup board for it. It has like measurements and stuff like that on it, so I can place my t-shirt here. And then there's a little guide across the bottom so that it tells you how to wrap your t-shirt or your bag around the digital printing machine, and then you can print it. So once I've gotten my item on here, for this sake, it's a tote bag, and I just have it lined up, and I typically will crease it or mark it where the center point is. Wherever the center point is where your design should start. And then I'm gonna just tuck under the rest of the tote bag here. Here we go. And then I'm gonna close this up, and I'm gonna feed it directly into the digital printing machine, okay? And I'll just show you what the actual machine looks like in a second. On average, the company that has the best digital printing machines is called Ricoh. And I'm pretty sure you've heard of them because they make a lot of different printers. The cheapest Ricoh that you can buy like for home use is probably about, I would say, anywhere between like $4,000 to $5,000. And it comes with two heads so that you can use these, like, rotation them out and do them like multiple times as you're doing like the digital printing, okay? Now, I want to show you that there's not always a huge difference. For instance, if you take a look at this print here, we have one with a blue fabric, and then we have one with a white fabric. The difference is the blue fabric is natural. It is a silk georgette. The white fabric is a poly chiffon. So I can tell you the price difference too. Sublimation is always going to be a lot cheaper because you have to pay for the cost of the fabric, and silk is very expensive. Silk can go anywhere from $20 a yard all the way up to $40, just depending on what type of fabric it is. Whereas a chiffon, you could get chiffon for $2, $4, $5 a yard, and it'll be a lot cheaper. Now, The difference, and I don't think you guys can tell, it's not a huge difference. It's just more of a quality thing. So this one, it was probably almost about $1,200 to print, like about 50 yards, whereas like this one is about half that price. But like I said, this is actually a synthetic, and then this is actually a natural. Now the hand feel is going to be different, of course, because the fabric is different. But the darker you go on the fabrication, the darker you go, the difference the hand feel is gonna be, because you gotta keep in mind that a lot of chemicals are being put into that dye to get it to be this color. Whereas like white, of course, is a little bit more of a natural color, and you don't have to dye it as much. So sublimation is definitely for my fast fashion designers, and digital printing on a silk georgette is for my luxury ready to wear designers. Okay, now I want to show you guys the DTG machine, okay, and how it works. So I'm going to turn the camera towards that. And before I get there, I'm sorry, let me just back up one more. This is a DTG on cotton. So this is 100% cotton here. Now, you know how I was telling you guys about scaling? So originally when I got the artwork file, this is what it looked like. As you can see, the stars are a lot bigger and they're a lot more spread out. This was version number 2. Now, initially, when you get a print created by a textile or graphic designer, depending on what you're putting it on, you may or may not decide that, you know, the scale is too big. So for instance, if this was a shirt for an adult, this would be perfect. But this particular designer is making clothing for children, which means the silhouettes themselves are very small. So this scale is way too big for children's clothing. This is a better scale, so we had the graphic designer scale it back down. However, of course, because the designer did not catch that on the first time, they had to pay more to go back and rescale the design and then get these printed again. Now, anytime a fabric has a print on it, it is called a strike off. That's what the industry term is across the board. Okay, if a fabric is a solid color, it is called a lab dip. That is the industry terminology for that. So your lab dips are always solids, and then your printed fabrics are always strike-offs. So just take that and keep that note, okay? Alrighty, and then of course I'm gonna open up for questions like the last 5 minutes as well, so that you guys can see. This is a, what's this one? This is a PK, performance PK with the print. Now in this instance, the designer did not like the way that this turned out because it wasn't vibrant enough. But that's something that you also would need to see on your graphic image on the screen. So you can look at a PNG file and look at a graphic on the screen. You can tell whether the dark is dark enough. If you don't, then you have to continue to just train your skill set of seeing things like digitally as far as in person, and just put on like your designer, like your concept hat, okay? So hope that was clear for you guys. Now, the digital printing machine is actually behind the camera, so I am going to go ahead and do that last before I switch around. I did have one more thing on the table that I wanted to discuss, and that is just embroidery. Now, embroidery is another form, of course, of surface design as well. Embroidery, of course, is just done with a embroidery machine. There are, of course, big header embroidery machines. There are some sewing machines that actually work with embroidery as well. There's a brother, I believe, there's a brother that is a sewing and embroidery mix. Now, the thing with embroidery, if you're working on a sewing machine with embroidery, the possibilities that you want to do are very, very limited because it only has certain functions. But if you have an actual embroidery machine, you can do as many colors as you want in a design. You could also do, you know, a design like on a bigger scale with like a bigger hoop. You can also change the deftness of the stitch. So you can't, I ain't gonna say you can't, but you should probably use embroidery thread when it comes to embroidery, and you can get like a whole kit of embroidery threads, and then you can change the stitch to the length. So I wouldn't use a heavy embroidery thread on a thinner fabric. Like I would never use embroidery too much, probably on chiffons or on silks. If I did, it would be very, very light stitch. It's only because it's heavy, you know, and it has to have a backing on it. And the backing is pretty much an interfacing, a very, very heavy interfacing that keeps it stable. They also call it a stabilizer as well. That's another term for it too. But I would use embroidery on denim because denim is heavy and in weight. I would use embroidery on like wool and boiled wool. Like that's also really good to use it on. I would use digital printing on silk fabrics. I would use digital printing on. Actually, I would use digital printing on anything because it's on the surface, so it's fine. And then silk screening, I would only use if I had a really, really, it's going to last the longest. And let me make sure I say that. Embroidery is going to last forever. Heat transfer does not last very long because it is vinyl, a couple washes, and then it's pretty much peeling after that. Sublimation will last for a very, very long time. But that's pretty much it. As far as like sublimation goes, it'll last, but it has like some sublimation has like a white interfacing on the back. So let's say you have a top and a bottom, and then let's say you're a little bit bigger on the bottom than you are on the top, and it's a matching set. The color will look extremely different because it's stretched out more. The more it stretches, the more the print expands. So that's the only thing when it comes to sublimation that you can probably have an issue with if you're using a stretch garment. You don't have that issue if the garment is a woven. So only issue with sublimation is going to be on your knit fabrics if you have a print. If you don't have a print, you're good to go. And then, of course, you don't need sublimation if you don't have a print. So kind of like, escapes itself out. What else do I want to tell you guys about? I think that's it. Embroidery, heat transfer, chenille. We went through sublimation. We went through wood cut and wood printing. We went through all of that. So now I'm going to kind of show you guys how the machine works for a digital print and how you would do it. You would need a computer software to go with it. And if you ever were to buy yourself a digital printing machine, it will have the software that you need to download, okay? I'm just going to shift this way. Alrighty. And we're going to cut to another commercial break. And then when we get back, I'll go over digital printing and then I'll take questions.
There's a couple things I'd like to say to you. After all the crazy things that we've been through, I needed you in the dead of night, the wake of the day, first broken light, and blind I'd follow you. I never realized how much I needed you.
Comfort. What we deliver by delivering.
Okay, and we are back. So this is what the software looks like for the Ricoh. Let me get as close to the screen as I can as possible. So what you'll do is you'll select Create Design or Image Upload. So I hope you guys can see that really well. You select an image, of course. And then let's say I'm gonna do a picture of my bags. I'm gonna click that, and then I'm gonna hit done. Once it's there, I want to hit upload. Upload completed. Now, go back, and then you can go to the design. You can actually draw directly. Oops, sorry, kind of cut out there. You can draw directly onto the piece, or you could just do the image upload. So once you've done that, you'll just end up selecting what tray you want to use. It'll tell you in what direction you need to actually put the garment in. So as you can see, ours is right behind us. So that's this machine. So earlier you saw me set up my, where'd it go? Oh, sorry. You saw me set this up here to get the actual print on there. And what it is that it'll go into this part of the machine. Now, I'm not actually going to print because it just takes some time for it to like warm up, but I just want you guys to get a gist of what the machine looks like. Now, the one that I have is the cheaper version. It's the $5,000 version. So mine will not print white ink, meaning I can't print on black garments. That one was a step up. It's about a 10K machine. Okay, so I have the one where I can print just your regular CMYK colors, and I can print on any fabric. I just can't print on fabrics that are black. But for fabrics that are black, just because I honestly think the heat transfer pops more, I'll typically use vinyl for a white on black garment, or silk screen is also a good one. So once you selected your tray, you go ahead and you load it directly up like this. And then you just hit start, and then the image that was on the screen that I showed you guys will just go ahead and print on here. Now, once that print is done, you need for it to dry. So my second tray was already in the print, it was already in the heated area. But while one is printing, I can be loading up the next one. So let's say you're doing an order for someone or a custom order, you're going to continue to just keep flipping out the trays. And then when one tray comes out, and it's done printing, you take it out and you put it basically in like what they call like an oven. And then you close up the oven, and then you let it go ahead and you let it dry. And that's the way you do the digital printing. So digital printing, just once again, guys, is just like printing on a piece of paper. It's literally a printing machine for clothing, and then you just use like an oven-based thing that comes with it. It's right below it that you use for it to actually dry. So I want to open up the floor for any questions that you have. Go ahead and let me know if you have specific questions about certain fabrics or specific questions about certain print techniques. Is it hard to see? It's hard to see your examples. Can you provide a link or something to them on your website? As far as like the prints and stuff like that, we actually have on our Instagram, we have an entire little it's like a reel, and it breaks down all the different printing techniques. We talk about them all, and then we show examples of them all. So definitely refer to our reel Instagram. It's probably a couple pieces down, but it's a whole bunch of fabrics on the table, and we explain them all, and you can see them all. Do you print on demand at your company? No, I do not. I only do printing for our clients. So if our client requires like a logo or something like that, if we're able to do it in-house, then we will go ahead and do it in-house. But we are not a printmaking company. We work with a outsource to do certain printing. So we have the little machinery in-house, and for sample purposes, we'll do it. But otherwise, we'll just outsource to one of our partners, and we will take the lead in getting it created for you. I use a screen printer who can do dozens of colors at once. Do you recommend having sources like an outside screen printer? I do. I do recommend having an outsourcer or a supplier that also can do that, just because that can slow up your time and slow up your productivity. I do recommend working with professional printmakers. So like I said, we're not professional printmakers. I just know a lot about printmaking from taking courses and doing it this way, but I still will feel way more confident in printmaking with a professional. Dyeing I can do in my sleep because it's really just, dipping something in the bucket. But printing does require to me a little bit more advanced skill set. Who makes those machines? Incredible. Ricoh is the direct-to-garment machine. Cricut is the heat transfer machine company. And then for the silk screen, I just bought it online. I typed in silk screen startup kit, and I believe I got it from Amazon. It was quite some time ago. But I don't remember, but I believe it was from Amazon, and it had a little video that came with it as well. It was called DIY Silk Screen, if I'm not mistaken. I just love your show. Well, we love you, Rachel. Thank you for tuning in with us. So thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed today's show and that you got a little bit of information about them all. Just a couple points. I just want to reiterate it. DTG, good for all fabrics. Sublimation is only good for synthetic fabrics. Embroidery is better for fabrics that have weight, so denims and leathers and wools and stuff like that. Heat transfer is more so for lighter weight fabrics as well. That's the best. We do have a tour coming up. It is the 15th, and I did post this post a couple hours ago. Everything on our website will be 50% starting at midnight tonight. That includes the Garment District Tour. The Garment District Tour will be 50% off. It is an in-person tour, so you're welcome to join us. We have not released a virtual version just of yet. That is something that we will be working on, and we will keep you guys posted on that. If there aren't any more questions, I hope you guys have a beautiful holiday weekend, and I will see you all next week. And happy designing, happy sewing, happy pattern making, happy sketching. Peace out, designers.
ste svedkami vzniku životného diela nenápadného autora. Inšpiruje ho príroda, plná pulzujúceho života.